Her analysis is why we lost the Evergreen account. Victor's words cut across the conference room as I paused at the threshold. The meeting had started 30 minutes early. No one had notified me. Again, 12 faces turned toward me, expressions ranging from pity to contempt. My colleagues, arranged in a perfect horseshoe around the presentation screen, had apparently been discussing my performance. Without me present, Victor continued as if I weren't standing there. Nora simply doesn't understand our market positioning. The numbers she provided were misaligned with client expectations. The numbers that were exactly what our client had requested. The numbers I'd stayed until 3 a.m. calculating while Victor was at his club. I took my seat silently at the far end of the table, away from the water pitcher, notepads, or anyone who might acknowledge me. This was the final evidence I needed. Before I tell you how I transformed from the woman they believed they could erase into the owner of their professional futures, could you take a moment to imagine being in that room? The crushing weight of public humiliation, the burning resolve to prove your worth, these are emotions we've all felt. If you've ever been underestimated or overlooked, this story might feel familiar. Stay with me to the end, because what happened next changed not just my life, but an entire industry's understanding of power. My name is Nora, not Nora with the Ivy League education or family connections. Just Nora, who grew up watching her mother clean other people's homes, who won a partial scholarship to State University, who graduated top of her class while working 2 jobs. The woman who entered the investment world because numbers made sense when people didn't. Numbers didn't care about your accent, your wardrobe budget, or whether you belonged to the right clubs. I joined Keystone Investment Group 5 years ago as a junior analyst. My colleagues called me detail-oriented and supportive in performance reviews, words that sound like compliments but actually mean, we'll do the tedious work we don't want to do. Within 6 months, I realized the unwritten hierarchy. Ideas from men like Victor and Emmett became strategies. Identical ideas from women like me became interesting suggestions to consider later. I watched my male counterparts advance while my path remained static. They received bonuses for presentations built on my research. They closed deals using projections I had calculated. They attended exclusive client dinners while I received meeting notes to keep me in the loop. For 3 years, I played their game. I smiled at inappropriate jokes. I accepted late meeting invitations. I prepared briefings for others to present. I became the office ghost, present but unseen, heard but unacknowledged. But while they underestimated me, I studied them. I learned that Victor took credit for work he didn't understand, that Emmett made promises to clients our firm couldn't keep, that Harriet allied with whoever had the most power in any given meeting, that Dimitri had brilliant analytical skills but lacked the courage to challenge consensus. More importantly, I identified gaps in our investment strategy, emerging markets they dismissed as too unpredictable, sustainability startups they labeled too idealistic, women-led companies they overlooked entirely. I documented every missed opportunity, every flawed analysis, every time they rejected my recommendations only to implement watered-down versions months later. Then I began building something of my own. It started small, a separate investment account with my modest savings, research conducted during lunch breaks and late evenings, connections made through online forums instead of golf courses. I focused on companies they would never notice. A women-led water purification startup in Chennai, a sustainable packaging manufacturer in Medellin, a revolutionary battery technology developed by a team of female engineers our firm had explicitly rejected for funding. My first independent investment tripled in 8 months. I reinvested the returns and added 2 more companies to my portfolio. By year 2 of my parallel career, I had outperformed Keystone's official returns by 17%. Not that anyone at work would know. At Keystone, I remained the reliable background player, the one who corrected others' spreadsheet errors without mentioning them, the one who stayed late to prepare materials for meetings I wouldn't be invited to attend, the one whose ideas were dismissed in group settings only to resurface in strategy documents with someone else's name attached. Your problem, Nora, Victor told me during my 4th-year review, is that you lack vision. You're too focused on details to see the big picture. This, From the man who had rejected my proposal to invest in renewable energy startups 6 months before a major market shift made them the year's best performing sector. I nodded politely and accepted my 2% raise while my male counterparts received 15% and promotions. That evening, I finalized the paperwork on my largest independent investment to date, a significant minority stake in a promising tech manufacturer called Helios Systems. Helios specialized in advanced solar integration technology, and their innovation pipeline was remarkable. But they struggled with scaling production and had management conflicts that prevented them from reaching their potential. Their parent company, Meridia Technologies, was publicly considering spinning them off or selling them entirely. This was exactly the type of opportunity I had trained myself to recognize. A diamond with fixable flaws that my colleagues at Keystone couldn't see past their biases to evaluate properly. When Keystone surprisingly took on Helios as a client 3 months later, I was initially concerned about conflicts of interest. Then I realized no one had bothered to check who owned shares in their parent company. To my colleagues, I was invisible, and so were my investments. I was assigned to the Helios account as a supporting analyst, reporting to Emmett, who had been promoted to lead the relationship. He immediately restricted my access to client meetings, claiming my presentation style lacked the polish Helios executives would expect. The real reason became clear when I reviewed his preliminary strategy. He planned to recommend breaking up Helios and selling its intellectual property, a move that would generate quick fees for Keystone but destroy the company's long-term value and eliminate hundreds of jobs. I prepared a comprehensive alternative analysis showing how Helios could become industry-leading within 3 years through targeted investment in their production capabilities and resolution of their management structure. I sent it to Emmett, Victor, and the strategy team. The response came swiftly. I was called to Victor's office the next morning. "This is completely off base," he said, flicking my report across his desk without looking at me. "You've wasted valuable time on an approach we would never present to the client. But the numbers support whatever narrative we decide they support." Victor interrupted. "Emmett has already begun discussions with Helios about our asset liquidation strategy. Your interference is inappropriate and, frankly, concerning from a performance perspective." That afternoon, I received an email informing me I was being placed on a 2-week administrative leave for strategy realignment training. In corporate speak, this was the first formal step toward termination. They thought they were punishing me. In reality, they gave me exactly what I needed: time. During those 2 weeks, I made exactly 27 calls to investors I had cultivated relationships with over the past 3 years. People who had seen the returns on my independent portfolio. People who, unlike my colleagues, recognized my analytical abilities and strategic vision. Meridia Technologies is undervalued by approximately 43% based on their intellectual property alone, I explained to Lisbeth, the founder of a women-focused investment collective. Their management is weak, but their subsidiary Helios has revolutionary technology that could transform residential solar implementation. Within 10 days, I had secured enough commitment for a controlling stake in Meridia. Working through a private holding company I had established the previous year, we made our move quickly and quietly. The beauty of corporate acquisitions is that they happen largely beyond public view until they're complete. By the time I returned from my administrative leave, the paperwork was being finalized. My investors trusted my vision for the company and agreed to keep my identity as the architect of the acquisition confidential. At Keystone, I found my security badge had been deactivated. I waited in the lobby for 20 minutes before someone from HR appeared to escort me upstairs. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said awkwardly. "Your administrative leave has been extended indefinitely while we reassess your role." I nodded calmly. "I understand. I'll need to collect my personal items." Victor intercepted us at my desk. "That won't be necessary," he said, handing me a small cardboard box. "We've packed everything up for you." The box contained my coffee mug, a framed photo of my mother, and a dead plant they had apparently neglected to water during my absence. "You'll be paid through the end of the month," he added, not quite meeting my eyes. "We think it's best for everyone if we make a clean break." I accepted the box with steady hands, May I ask what happened with the Helios account? Victor's expression flickered with something between annoyance and shame. That's no longer your concern. Of course, I replied, though I'd be interested to know if they accepted the asset liquidation strategy. There have been some complications with the client, he admitted reluctantly. Nothing we can't handle. Those complications were, of course, my doing. The moment my investor group gained control of Meridia, we had instructed Helios management to reevaluate all their external consulting relationships. Keystone's contract was placed under review, and their meetings with Helios executives were temporarily paused. I left Keystone that day with my small box of belongings, officially unemployed. None of my former colleagues bothered to send a farewell message or connect on professional networks. I had been erased from their world. For the next month, I worked from my apartment, directing the restructuring of Meridia and Helios through my holding company. We replaced 3 key executives, implemented a new production scaling strategy, and secured additional funding for their most promising technology patents. The companies thrived under the new direction. Production efficiency increased by 34% in the first month. Employee satisfaction scores rose as we implemented better benefits and eliminated the toxic management practices that had been holding them back. Then came the moment that would bring everything full circle. Helios decided to restart discussions with investment advisory firms to plan their next growth phase. They invited proposals from several firms, including Keystone. Through my position as majority owner of Meridia, I arranged to attend the final presentation dinner as a silent observer. No one at Keystone knew about my connection to their now revitalized client. They believed I was still job hunting, my career damaged by my failure with the Helios account. The executive team at Helios played their part perfectly. They invited Keystone to present their new strategy, undoubtedly revised after the ownership change, at an exclusive dinner at the Retaliation, the most prestigious restaurant in the financial district. The same restaurant where, 1 year earlier, I had been told my presence wasn't necessary at a client dinner. Keystone sent their full senior team, Victor, Emmett, Harriet, Dimitri, and Talia. They were instructed to also bring the analyst who had originally worked on the Helios account, me, as the client specifically requested, continuity from previous discussions. Victor called me himself, his voice strained with artificial warmth. Nora, we may have been hasty in our personnel decisions. Helios has specifically asked for you to attend their strategy dinner. We're prepared to offer you your position back, with a small adjustment to your compensation, of course. Of course, I echoed, allowing just enough eagerness in my voice. I would be happy to attend. Excellent. Though I should mention, your role will be primarily observational. Emmett will lead the presentation. I understand completely. The stage was set. If you're still with me, I want to thank you for listening to my story so far. What happens next changed not just my career, but how an entire industry viewed women in finance. If you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside, I hope you'll stay for the conclusion, because sometimes justice arrives in ways no one expects. Take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience and righteous comebacks. The most powerful moment is still to come. I arrived at the Aurelian 30 minutes early and was escorted to a private dining area with panoramic views of the city skyline. The table was set for 12 Helios executives, their new management team, and the Keystone contingent. The Helios CEO, Paloma, greeted me with a knowing smile. We had spent hours discussing the company's future over the past month, though no one at Keystone knew this. You're early, she noted, loud enough for the servers to hear. Are you nervous about the presentation? I returned her smile. Just prepared. She showed me to my assigned seat, at the far end of the table, naturally. The place card read, Nora Analyst. No last name, unlike the cards for Victor and the others, which included their full titles. Is this arrangement acceptable? Paloma asked, her eyes twinkling. Perfect, I replied. The Keystone team arrived as a unit, laughing at some private joke. Victor led the procession, followed by Emmett carrying presentation materials, then Harriet, Dimitri, and Talia. They faltered momentarily upon seeing me already seated, then recovered with professional smiles. Nora? Victor acknowledged with a curt nod before turning his full attention to Paloma. Miss Reyes, thank you for this opportunity. We're eager to share our vision for Helios's future. Emmett placed his materials at the center of the table, deliberately avoiding eye contact with me. Harriet and Talia took seats near Victor, while Dimitri, the only one who had occasionally shown me basic courtesy at Keystone, hesitated before taking the seat directly across from mine. "Hi, Nora," he said quietly. "Good to see you back." I thanked him with a genuine smile. Dimitri wasn't cruel like the others, just conflict avoidant to the point of complicity. The remaining seats filled with Helios executives and two people the Keystone team didn't recognize. Lisbeth from my investor, collective, and Marco, the new operations director we had appointed at Meridia. They were introduced simply as advisors. Dinner began with practiced corporate pleasantries. Victor dominated the conversation, speaking about Keystone's visionary approach to investment, while the servers delivered the first course. Emmett occasionally interjected with rehearsed anecdotes about their successes with other clients. Not once did anyone from Keystone address me directly or invite my input. To them, I remained what I had always been, furniture with a pulse, present but irrelevant. Halfway through the main course, Victor signaled to Emmett, who stood to begin their formal presentation. "Before we start," Paloma interrupted, "I'd like to address something important." She turned toward me. "Nora, our team has been curious. What exactly was your role in the original Helios analysis at Keystone?" Every Keystone head swiveled toward me, expressions ranging from confusion to alarm. This deviation from the script was clearly unexpected. Victor jumped in before I could answer. Nora provided support for our analytical team, basic number crunching, preliminary research, entry-level contributions. "Interesting," Paloma replied, "because we found her original strategy document in the Keystone server files, the one recommending against asset liquidation in favor of technology investment and management restructuring." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victor's expression hardened as he turned to me with unconcealed suspicion. "That document was never meant for client review," he said. "It was an internal exercise only, one that failed to align with our professional standards. Yet it precisely predicted the path we've successfully taken over the past month," Paloma observed, almost as if someone understood our potential better than the strategy Keystone officially proposed. Emmett remained standing, presentation remote clutched in his hand, increasingly uncertain whether to proceed. "Perhaps we should continue with the presentation," Harriet suggested smoothly. "We can discuss historical documents later." "Actually," said Marco, speaking for the first time, "I think this is relevant to today's discussion." He turned to me. "Nora, would you explain your current relationship with Meridia Technologies?" 5 pairs of Keystone eyes locked onto me. The silence stretched as I carefully folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. "I led the investment group that acquired controlling interest in Meridia Technologies last month," I said, my voice calm and clear. "We implemented the restructuring strategy I had originally proposed at Keystone, which has resulted in a 34% efficiency increase and a projected 27% revenue growth for the coming quarter." Victor's water glass tipped over, spilling across his presentation notes. No one moved to help him clean it up. "That's impossible," he finally managed. "You don't have the capital or connections for an acquisition of that scale." "I built both over the past 3 years," I replied. "While working at Keystone, I developed an independent investment portfolio that consistently outperformed the firm's returns. That track record attracted partners who recognized value where others couldn't see it." Emmett slowly sank back into his chair, presentation forgotten. Talia's expression shifted from shock to calculation, already adapting to the new power dynamic. Harriet's practiced smile had vanished completely. Dimitri looked at me with something approaching admiration. "You're the investor?" he asked, speaking the question that had rendered the others speechless. I nodded once. "Yes. I acquired the parent corporation last month." Lisbeth, who had been silently observing, now addressed the table. "As part of our investment strategy, we're reevaluating all service provider relationships. Keystone's contract is among those under review." Victor found his voice, though it lacked its usual authority. "This is highly irregular. There are clear conflict of interest concerns that need to be addressed. There certainly were, I agreed. When I was simultaneously employed by Keystone and investing independently in a Keystone client, that conflict no longer exists since my termination. Administrative leave, Victor corrected automatically. The paperwork I received stated termination effective immediately, I replied. But terminology isn't important now. What matters is Helios's future. Paloma nodded. Exactly. And that's why we've invited everyone here tonight, to determine who best understands that future. She signaled to a server, who distributed folders to everyone at the table. The Keystone team opened theirs with visible trepidation. Inside was a detailed organization chart for Meridia Technologies and its subsidiaries, including Helios. My name appeared at the top as chairperson of the investment group that now controlled the company. Below that was a new proposed service provider structure, with Keystone notably absent. This can't be legal, Harriet murmured, flipping through the pages. Every aspect has been reviewed by 3 separate legal teams, Lisbeth assured her. The acquisition was conducted properly through public market purchases. No insider information was used. But she was part of our team, Emmett protested. She had access to our client information. Information I myself developed, I pointed out, and which Keystone rejected and removed me from the account before any acquisition discussions began. Victor stared at me, his expression shifting from disbelief to something resembling respect. You planned this. I recognized an opportunity, I corrected, just as I recognized many opportunities that Keystone dismissed because they came from someone you underestimated. I turned to the Helios executives. As the new controlling partner in Meridia Technologies, I've been reviewing all subsidiary relationships. While I believe Helios has extraordinary potential, I have concerns about continuing with investment advisors who failed to see that potential initially. We've revised our analysis, Victor said quickly. Our new presentation will show. Your new presentation, I interrupted gently, incorporates all the elements of my original strategy that you rejected, the strategy that led me to acquire the company in the first place. The Keystone team exchanged glances, collectively realizing their position. What happens now? Dimitri asked. I turned to the final page in the folder. I'm proposing a restructuring of our advisory relationships. Keystone's contract will not be renewed as currently constituted. Victor's face flushed with anger. This is retribution, unprofessional and petty. This is business, I corrected, based on performance and merit. I stood, commanding the attention of the room without raising my voice. However, I believe in recognizing individual talent. Therefore, I'm extending offers to specific Keystone team members to join Meridia's internal strategy division. I looked directly at Dimitri. Your analytical skills are exceptional, though often overshadowed. We would value your contribution. His eyes widened with surprise and hope. Also, I continued, Talia's marketing expertise would be an asset as we reposition Helios in the renewable energy sector. Talia sat straighter, a small smile forming. You're poaching our team? Victor demanded. I'm offering opportunities based on individual merit, I replied. The same opportunity I was never given at Keystone. I turned back to the table. Those who join us will be evaluated solely on their contributions, not their connections or conformity. Those who don't will need to find other clients to replace the Meridia portfolio. The significance wasn't lost on anyone. Meridia represented nearly 20% of Keystone's current revenue. Its loss would affect bonuses, promotions, and possibly trigger layoffs. You can't just dismantle professional relationships built over years because of personal grievances, Harriet argued. I'm not, I said. I'm making decisions based on demonstrated performance and alignment with our corporate values. One of which is recognizing the contributions of every team member, regardless of gender, background, or political connections. I closed my folder and addressed the Helios executives. Thank you for hosting this dinner. I believe we've clarified the path forward. Unless there are questions, I suggest we conclude the business portion of the evening and enjoy dessert. Paloma nodded approvingly. An excellent suggestion. As servers cleared dinner plates and brought dessert menus, the atmosphere shifted. The Keystone team huddled at their end of the table, speaking in urgent whispers. Harriet was already on her phone beneath the table, likely warning Keystone leadership about the disaster unfolding. Dimitri moved to the empty seat beside me. "Did you mean it?" he asked quietly. "About the position?" "Every word," I confirmed. "You have real talent, Dimitri. You just need an environment where it's recognized. Why offer anything to any of us after how you were treated?" I considered his question carefully. Because success isn't about retribution. It's about building something better. The people who can contribute to that vision deserve the chance, regardless of their past associations. He nodded slowly. "I'll need to think about it, but thank you for seeing something in me." That's all any of us want, isn't it? To be truly seen. Across the table, Victor had recovered enough to attempt damage control. He was speaking earnestly to Paloma, who listened with polite attention while occasionally glancing my way with subtle amusement. When dessert concluded, people began gathering their belongings. The Keystone team moved as a unit toward the exit, their earlier confidence replaced by stunned uncertainty. Only Dimitri and Talia lingered, exchanging contact information with Marco for follow-up discussions. Victor paused at my chair on his way out. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You're right," I agreed. "It's just beginning." After they left, Paloma raised her glass toward me. "To seeing potential where others don't." "And to patience?" Lisbeth added with a smile. "The most underrated weapon in business." I raised my glass with them, feeling neither triumph nor bitterness, only the steady satisfaction of finally being in a position to create the change I had always envisioned. The following Monday, I arrived at Meridia's headquarters for my first official day as chairperson. My office overlooked the city, including the building where Keystone occupied 3 floors. From that height, it looked small. My assistant, I still found that concept surprising, informed me that Dimitri and Talia had both accepted positions with our team. Victor had called twice, first to threaten legal action, then to explore collaborative solutions. Harriet had already reached out to several Meridia board members, attempting to circumvent my authority. None of it concerned me. My position was secure, my strategy sound, and my focus clear. Over the next 6 months, we transformed Helios from a struggling subsidiary into Meridia's flagship division. Our solar integration technology became the industry standard, and our market valuation tripled. The management structure I implemented fostered innovation while eliminating the toxic culture that had previously limited growth. I established a mentorship program specifically for employees from non-traditional backgrounds. People whose ideas might have been overlooked in conventional corporate environments found in Meridia a place where merit truly mattered. Dimitri thrived as our head of analytical strategy, his confidence growing as his insights were recognized and implemented. Talia revolutionized our market positioning, earning the promotion she had been denied at Keystone. As for the others, Victor eventually left Keystone after their client base continued to erode. Emmett remained, though with diminished status. Harriet adapted as she always did, aligning herself with Keystone's new leadership. When Meridia went public 18 months after my acquisition, my initial investment multiplied 30-fold. The financial press called it the most surprising success story in renewable energy investment. They profiled me as a visionary outsider who saw opportunity where established firms saw only risk. Only those who had been in that dinner room knew the full truth, that success is sometimes the best response to being underestimated. I keep no mementos from my time at Keystone. No bitter reminders, no trophies of revenge. Just the small plant they had left to die on my desk, now flourishing in my office window, proof that with proper care and environment, growth is always possible. The only revenge worth having isn't making others smaller. It's becoming so much more than they believed you could be. Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated your abilities or dismissed your ideas? Did you find a way to prove your worth? Or are you still looking for that moment of recognition? Share your experience in the comments below. I read every single one. Your story might inspire someone else who's currently feeling overlooked or undervalued. If this journey of overcoming professional dismissal resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We share stories of resilience and transformation that can help you navigate your own challenges. Remember, Sometimes the person others fail to see becomes the one they can't ignore. Until next time, this is Nora, reminding you that the best view comes after the hardest climb. The envelope dropped onto my desk with a light tap. I looked up to see Aiden's face, tight smile, hands clasped behind his back. "We need you to read this now, Merritt," he said. I slid my finger under the flap, pulled out the single sheet of paper. The company letterhead sat atop a document titled Notification of Restricted Communication Protocol. The first paragraph stated in bold, "Effective immediately. You are prohibited from discussing any company-related matters with employees at any level." The paper vibrated in my hands. I set it down to hide the tremor. "Is this a joke?" I asked. "It's standard procedure when serious allegations are made," Aiden replied, his voice unnaturally even. "The investigation committee determined this was necessary until matters are resolved." What allegations? But I knew. Of course I knew. "I'm not at liberty to discuss that," Aiden gestured to the paper. "Please sign the acknowledgement at the bottom." 3 days earlier, I'd asked too many questions about a discrepancy I'd found while auditing the Asia-Pacific expansion accounts. $60 million that seemed to disappear into nothing. Now they were cutting me off completely. "And if I refuse to sign?" I asked. "Then we'll note your refusal and proceed accordingly." I picked up my pen, my mind racing through options. They thought this paper would silence me. They believed this corporate muzzle would make me disappear quietly. What they didn't know, I'd already made copies of everything, and I'd made a call. I signed my name with a steady hand. "There you go." Aiden took the paper, nodded once, and turned to leave. "Aiden," I called after him. He paused at the door. "Tell Penelope I said hello." His shoulders stiffened, almost imperceptibly. He knew what I meant. Penelope, our chief financial officer, who I'd noticed signing off on those mysterious transfers, who was now trying to bury me in corporate red tape. The door closed behind him. I opened my desk drawer and looked at my phone, the screen showing a message from an unknown number. "Package received. Meeting confirmed. 24 hours. I just needed to last 24 more hours. If you're feeling that twist in your stomach right now, you know something big is coming." Hit like and subscribe to hear how this corporate takedown unfolds. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Merritt Arlo. Until 3 weeks ago, I was a senior auditor at one of the largest investment firms in the country. Now I'm that whistleblower on the evening news. People often ask if I was scared. That's not quite the right word. When you discover your entire professional life is built on quicksand, fear isn't what you feel. It's more like waking up in a house you've lived in for years and suddenly noticing that all the doors lead to different rooms than they did yesterday. I wasn't always suspicious by nature. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, I trusted people. My parents ran the local hardware store. They taught me that numbers don't lie, even when people do. Balance your books, they said, account for every penny. I carried that lesson through college, through my accounting degree, through 10 years of climbing the corporate ladder. I believed in systems and processes. I believed in the guardrails of corporate governance. Then I found the first discrepancy. It was small, a $300,000 consultancy payment to a company I couldn't trace. In our world, that's practically a rounding error, but something about it nagged at me. The payment had been authorized on a Saturday at 2 a.m. Who approves payments in the middle of the night? I flagged it for my boss, Preston. He thanked me and said he'd look into it. 2 days later, the entry was gone from the system. No correction note, no explanation, just gone, as if it had never existed. That's when I started keeping my own records. For 6 months, I worked as usual during the day. At night, I traced money through our labyrinthine accounting system. I found more weekend approvals, more missing companies, more dead ends. Then I found the pattern. Every major transfer connected to our new Asia-Pacific headquarters had a shadow. Money going out listed for construction, equipment, local permits, all the expected expenses for a major international expansion. But the amounts were inflated, sometimes by as much as 40%. The excess disappeared into a network of entities that existed only on paper. In total, $60 million, siphoned away over 18 months. I compiled everything into a report and requested a meeting with our CEO, Dante. His assistant scheduled me for a 15-minute slot on a Tuesday morning. When I arrived, Preston was there too, along with Penelope from finance. I hadn't expected an audience. "Merritt," Dante gestured for me to sit. "Preston says you have concerns about our APAC accounting." I placed my report on his desk. Not concerns, evidence. Preston's face remained neutral, but his fingers drummed once on his knee. A nervous tick. I'd noticed in budget meetings. That's a serious word, Dante said, not touching the report. It's a serious issue. I opened the folder, turned it toward him. $60 million has been diverted from the APAC project through falsified vendor payments. Penelope leaned forward. These are complex international transactions. Perhaps you're misinterpreting standard currency hedging practices. I'm not, I said. I traced the money. It's being laundered through a series of shell entities that all connect back to a holding company called Brightline Ventures. The room went silent. Dante and Penelope exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. May I see that? Preston asked, reaching for the report. I let him take it. He flipped through pages slowly, nodding occasionally as if considering my findings. Then he closed the folder. This is interesting work, Merritt, he said, but I think you're connecting dots that aren't there. International finance is complicated. Fraud isn't complicated, I countered. It's just hidden. Dante sighed. Let's not throw around words like fraud. That's a legal term with serious implications. I know exactly what it means, I said. And so do you. The meeting ended abruptly after that. They kept my report. I returned to my desk knowing I'd just lit a fuse, but unsure how long it would burn. The answer came 3 days later with Aiden and his envelope. What they didn't know then was that I'd expected this move. The night before my meeting with Dante, I'd sent copies of everything to my personal email. I'd also reached out to an old college friend who now worked for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. As I sat at my desk after Aiden left, I knew the clock was ticking. The no-contact order meant I couldn't access the system anymore to gather additional proof. They would be closing ranks, covering tracks, preparing stories. But they had made one critical mistake. They let me keep coming to work. They thought keeping me isolated was safer than firing me outright and risking a wrongful termination lawsuit. They believed that without access to company systems and cut off from colleagues, I was neutralized. What they failed to consider was that I still had my eyes and my memory, and 24 hours until my FBI contact arrived with a warrant. I spent that day watching. Not obviously. I kept my head down, sorted through harmless paperwork, responded to emails about routine matters, but I observed everything. Penelope visited Dante's office 3 times. Preston disappeared for 2 hours after lunch. The IT director, Kit, was summoned upstairs and returned looking pale. Aiden kept glancing at my cubicle when he thought I wouldn't notice. At 3:17 p.m., a team from our data management department arrived on our floor. They set up at an empty desk cluster near the server room. Nobody announced why they were there, but I recognized the pattern from past projects. They were purging data. My stomach tightened. They were erasing the evidence faster than I'd anticipated. I took a bathroom break, locking myself in a stall to text my FBI contact. They're cleaning house? Timeline accelerated? The response came 5 minutes later. Hold position. Warrant processing. First thing tomorrow. Tomorrow might be too late. Back at my desk, I opened a spreadsheet and pretended to work while thinking through options. I needed insurance. Something to preserve crucial evidence until morning. At 4:45 p.m., Preston walked past my desk. He paused, then doubled back. Merritt, he said, voice artificially casual. Working late tonight? Just finishing some reports, I replied. Don't stay too long. Building maintenance is doing electrical work overnight. Systems might be unstable. Translation. Whatever you try to access after hours won't work. I smiled. Thanks for the heads up. After he left, I made a decision. It was risky, but I was out of alternatives. At 5:30 p.m., I packed my bag and headed toward the elevator, along with the first wave of departing employees. But instead of going down to the lobby, I pressed the button for the 14th floor, building operations. The maintenance department was nearly empty. Perfect. I walked confidently to the supply closet, found what I needed, and slipped it into my bag. Then I took the stairs down to the 12th floor, which housed an abandoned expansion project. The company had leased the space, but never finished building it out. I chose a spot behind some construction materials and settled in to wait. 6 hours until midnight. 9 hours until the FBI arrived. My phone buzzed. A text from Preston. Forgot to mention, security doing extra sweeps tonight. New protocol. They were looking for me. They suspected I hadn't really left. Had they seen me on security cameras? Were they tracking my badge access? I turned off my phone to prevent any location tracking. Hours crawled by. I heard security walking through twice, flashlights sweeping, but my hiding spot remained secure. At 11:45 p.m., I made my move. I crept up to the executive floor. Using the maintenance key I'd borrowed, I let myself in. The executive wing used a separate server system, one the data team downstairs couldn't access without authorization. If copies of the incriminating files still existed anywhere, they'd be here. Dante's office was locked, but the key worked there too. I slipped inside and closed the door quietly behind me. His computer required a password, but I wasn't after his machine. I pulled out the emergency backup drive from my bag, the one I'd taken from maintenance. These drives were kept ready, in case of system failure, containing mirror images of critical servers updated daily. The one I held had yesterday's complete data snapshot. I just needed to replace it with today's version, the one that would contain evidence of both the original fraud and today's cover-up attempt. As I moved toward the server cabinet, the office door opened. I had a feeling you might try something like this. Preston stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the hallway light. My breath caught. I'm just doing my job. Your job? He stepped inside, closing the door. Your job was to review accounts and flag issues through proper channels, not conduct private investigations. Proper channels? I almost laughed. You buried my report. I evaluated it and found it lacking. That's also my job. He moved closer, noticed the drive in my hand. What's that? Insurance. Something changed in his expression, a flicker of uncertainty. Merritt, you need to understand the bigger picture. The APAC expansion is bringing thousands of jobs to struggling communities. Yes, there are financial complexities, but the greater good— Stop, I cut him off. Don't pretend this is philanthropy. It's theft. It's business, he countered. Every major company operates in gray areas internationally. If we strictly followed every regulation across every jurisdiction, we'd never compete globally. Is that what lets you sleep at night? He sighed, suddenly looking tired. What do you want, Merritt? A promotion? A percentage? Name it. The offer hung between us. For a brief, disorienting moment, I saw the path he was offering. Advancement, wealth, belonging to the inner circle. All I had to do was forget what I knew. I want accountability, I said finally. His expression hardened. Then you'll get nothing. Because by morning, there won't be anything to account for. He reached for the drive in my hand. I stepped back, bumping into Dante's desk. A photo frame fell, glass shattering on the floor. Preston lunged. I ducked away, but he caught my arm. The drive fell from my grasp, skittering across the floor. The office door swung open again. Light flooded in. What's happening here? Penelope stood in the doorway, eyes darting between us. Preston straightened. Our auditor was doing some after-hours exploring. Penelope's gaze found the drive on the floor. Her lips thinned to a line. This is disappointing, Merritt, she said, though not surprising. Security reported your badge never left the building. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling security. This is trespassing at minimum. It's evidence gathering, I corrected her, for the federal investigation that begins tomorrow morning. Her finger paused over the screen. What investigation? The FBI will be here at 9 a.m. with warrants for all financial records related to the APAC project and Brightline Ventures. Preston's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Call security, I suggested. Have me escorted out. File charges. Make a big scene. It'll give the agents plenty to ask about when they arrive. Penelope and Preston exchanged looks. I could almost see the calculations running behind their eyes, weighing risks, considering options, searching for the scenario where they emerged unscathed. Perhaps we're being hasty, Penelope said finally, lowering her phone. I agree, Preston added. Merritt, let's discuss this reasonably. Whatever you think you've found, I'm sure we can clarify. The sudden shift to conciliation was almost comical. I found $60 million being siphoned through fake vendors, I said. What's there to clarify? Context, Penelope insisted. You're missing crucial context. Then enlighten me. Preston gestured toward Dante's small conference table. Let's sit. Talk this through. It was a delaying tactic, but I decided to play along. Every minute they spent trying to convince me was a minute they weren't destroying more evidence. We sat. They talked. They spun elaborate explanations about international tax strategies, about competitive necessity, about regulatory arbitrage. Their words flowed like water, plausible, smooth, practiced, and utterly false. As they talked, I noticed something. Penelope kept glancing at her watch. every few minutes, like clockwork. She was waiting for something, or someone, which is why those transfers might appear irregular to someone without visibility into the full strategy. Preston was saying, "You see, Merritt, this is exactly why these matters should be escalated properly." Jumping to conclusions. "What time is it, Penelope?" I interrupted. She stiffened. "What? You've checked your watch 8 times in 20 minutes. Are you expecting something to happen?" The conference room door opened before she could answer. Dante walked in, followed by 2 men I didn't recognize. One carried a laptop bag. "Merritt," Dante said, his voice carefully neutral. "Working late, I see." "We all are," I replied. He nodded to the strangers. "These gentlemen are from our data security team. They need to examine your devices and accounts for potential breaches." The trap became clear. They would discover that I had stolen or fabricated data. They would make me the criminal. "No," I said simply. "It's not a request," Dante replied. "It's company policy for suspected data theft." "I don't work for you anymore." I stood up. I quit, effective immediately. Preston started to speak, but Dante held up a hand to silence him. "That's your right," Dante said, "but you still can't leave with company property." "I don't have any company property." "The backup drive." I glanced at the drive still lying on the floor near the desk. "I never touched it. Check your cameras." The man with the laptop stepped forward. "We'll need to verify that and examine your personal devices to confirm no data was transferred." "You need a warrant for that," I said. "Not for company-owned equipment in a company building." "My phone and laptop are personal property. That's for legal to determine," Dante said. "In the meantime, we have a responsibility to secure our systems." They were stalling, creating a paper trail, building their defense. The realization hit me like cold water. They weren't worried about the FBI anymore. Something had changed. "What changed?" I asked, studying Dante's expression. "An hour ago, these two were panicking about the FBI arriving tomorrow. Now you're all calm and methodical. Why?" A small smile flickered across Dante's face. "Let's just say we've been in touch with some friends who assure us your concerns will be handled appropriately." The implications settled like lead in my stomach. They had connections, the kind that could derail an investigation before it began. "You made a call," I said. "Several," Dante replied. "It seems your FBI contact isn't as highly placed as you might have hoped." Was he bluffing? I couldn't tell. My contact had been confident about the warrant, but I knew how these things worked. One call from the right person could delay action, reroute priorities, create bureaucratic obstacles. The man with the laptop opened it, fingers flying across the keyboard. "I need access to the server cabinet," he told Dante. Of course, Dante produced a key from his pocket. While they were distracted with the cabinet, I weighed my options. If they had indeed managed to block the FBI raid, I needed a new plan. If they were bluffing, I just needed to stall until morning. Either way, I couldn't let them fabricate evidence against me. "I want to call my lawyer," I announced. Preston laughed. "At 1 a.m.? Yes. Right now." "That seems reasonable," Dante said, surprising me. "Use my office phone." Another trap. They'd record the call, gather intelligence on my legal strategy. I pulled out my personal cell instead. "I'll use mine. No outside devices until we've secured the data," the second stranger said, stepping toward me. I stepped back. "Don't touch me or my property," Penelope cut in, her voice suddenly conciliatory. "Everyone calm down. Merritt, we're not trying to prevent you from calling counsel. We just need to follow protocol for data security." "Then I'll step outside to make my call." "I'm afraid we can't allow you to leave until this matter is resolved," Dante said. "Security protocol." "So I'm being detained?" "Of course not. You're free to leave once we've secured company data." It was a standoff. They couldn't physically force me to comply without creating a much bigger legal problem. But they could prevent me from leaving, claim I was trying to remove company property. A new approach formed in my mind. "You know what? You're right," I said. All 4 of them looked surprised. "I am?" Dante asked. "Yes, data security is important, and I have nothing to hide." I set my phone on the table, careful to press the emergency sauce button as I did. It would silently start recording audio. "Go ahead and check. You won't find any company files." The technician picked up my phone. "Password?" I gave it to him. I had nothing incriminating on the device. I'd been too careful for that. What I did have was now a recording of everything happening in this room. For the next hour, they combed through my phone and personal laptop. As expected, they found nothing. No files, no emails, No messages about the company. Satisfied? I asked when they finally finished. For now, Dante said, but we still need to understand why you were in my office after hours. I told you, I suspected you were erasing evidence of financial crimes. I came to preserve that evidence for the authorities. By breaking into secured areas? The door was unlocked. I lied. They couldn't prove otherwise. I'd put the maintenance key back in my pocket. Preston jumped in. This is getting us nowhere. Merritt, be reasonable. Whatever you think you've found, there's an explanation. We can work this out professionally. I'm listening. We'll form a special audit committee. You can present your concerns formally. We'll bring in independent reviewers. While you continue erasing the evidence? No one is erasing anything, Penelope insisted. I gestured toward the technicians. Then what are they doing? Standard security protocols, Dante said. Nothing more. The conversation circled like this for another hour. They offered compromises, explanations, assurances. I refused to budge. The clock ticked toward morning. At 3:17 a.m., Dante's phone rang. He answered, listened, then hung up without speaking. There's been a development, he said. It seems we have visitors in the lobby. My pulse quickened. The FBI? Already? Local police, he continued, dashing my hope. Someone activated an emergency alert from this room. They're responding to a possible hostage situation. All eyes turned to my phone on the table. The recording app was still running, visible on the screen. You called the police on us? Preston's voice rose in disbelief. I didn't call anyone, I replied truthfully. The SOS feature activated automatically when I felt threatened. Dante's face darkened. You've crossed a line, Merritt. No, you crossed it when you stole $60 million and tried to silence me. He picked up his desk phone. Security, please escort our police visitors to the executive floor. Tell them there's been a misunderstanding. Within minutes, 2 uniformed officers arrived. I recognized immediately they weren't standard patrol officers. Their uniforms were too crisp, their demeanor too polished. Private security, wearing police-like uniforms. Everything all right here? The taller one asked, addressing Dante. Yes, just a workplace misunderstanding, Dante replied smoothly. Miss Arlo accidentally triggered her phone's emergency feature during a late meeting. The security guard looked at me. Is that accurate, ma'am? This was my chance. Real police would have asked to speak with me separately. These men were part of the company's web of influence. No, I said firmly. I'm being detained against my will, after discovering financial crimes. The guards exchanged glances. She's under considerable stress, Penelope explained. We were just trying to follow data security protocols. I understand, the guard said. Perhaps we should continue this conversation downstairs. Excellent idea, I agreed, standing quickly. The guards led us to the elevator. As the doors closed, I noticed Dante typing something on his phone. The guards positioned themselves on either side of me. The elevator descended to the lobby. When the doors opened, I expected to see more security personnel waiting. Instead, 3 men and a woman in suits stood in formation. The woman held up a badge. FBI, nobody move. The shock on Dante's face was worth every tense moment of the night. Agent Tess Harper, the woman introduced herself. We have a warrant to search these premises and seize all financial records related to your Asia-Pacific expansion project. There must be some mistake, Dante began. No mistake, she replied. We've been building this case for months. Your auditor's evidence was just the final piece we needed. Understanding dawned on Dante's face as he turned to me. Months? You weren't the initial source? I smiled for the first time that night. I guess I wasn't the only one who noticed those weekend transfers. The FBI team moved with practiced efficiency, securing the building, isolating key executives, beginning the evidence collection process. I was escorted to a conference room where Agent Harper took my statement. You took a huge risk staying here tonight, she said when we finished. I was afraid they'd destroy everything before you arrived. They tried, she confirmed. But we had inside help. Someone mirrored the servers to an external location weeks ago. Who? She smiled. That's confidential, but they'll be well protected under whistleblower statutes. By sunrise, the truth emerged in fragments. The Asia-Pacific expansion had been legitimate, but Dante and several board members had inflated costs and diverted the excess funds. Penelope had managed the money movement. Preston had buried audit flags. The scheme had tentacles throughout the executive team. And someone else, someone I still didn't know, had been gathering evidence long before I stumbled onto the trail. As morning light streamed through the lobby windows, I watched Preston being escorted to a waiting vehicle, hands cuffed behind his back. Penelope followed a minute later, her composure finally cracking as cameras flashed from news vans across the street. Agent Harper approached, holding my phone and laptop. "These are clear. You can take them now." "Thank you. We'll need you to testify eventually," she said. "And there's paperwork for whistleblower protection." "I understand." She hesitated, then added, "Someone wants to meet you. They're waiting outside." Curious, I followed her through the lobby doors. A car idled at the curb, tinted windows concealing its occupant. The back door opened as I approached. Inside sat Kit, our IT director, the same Kit who had been summoned upstairs yesterday and returned looking pale. "Get in," Kit said. "We should talk." I slid into the seat beside them, questions forming on my lips. "I've been tracking the money for 14 months, Kit said before I could speak. "Ever since they made me set up the separate server system for executive use only. I knew they were hiding something." "You were the other whistleblower." Kit nodded. "I needed someone with financial expertise to verify what I was seeing. Someone with access and integrity." "So you made sure I was assigned to audit the APAC accounts?" "Yes. And you did exactly what I hoped. You found the pattern." The pieces clicked together. "You were monitoring my searches. You knew what I'd discovered. I had to be sure you weren't part of it before I approached you. Then you went directly to Dante, and things accelerated." "Why didn't you come to me after that?" Kit's expression darkened. "Because I saw what they were planning to do to you. The no-contact order was just the beginning. They were building a case to frame you for the very crimes you discovered." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. "You called the FBI yesterday, not me." "Your friend at the FBI was real," Kit confirmed, "but they diverted her call. The Bureau has been investigating for months through different channels. I just made sure they knew to move immediately." The magnitude of what we'd accomplished washed over me. $60 million recovered. A dozen conspirators facing charges. A corruption scheme exposed. "What happens now?" I asked. Kit handed me a business card. "That's my lawyer. She specializes in whistleblower cases. The company will try to discredit us, but we have the evidence and the truth." Through the windshield, I watched as Dante emerged from the building, flanked by agents. His eyes found our car, narrowed briefly in recognition, then looked away. "They never imagined we'd fight back, did they?" I said. "No," Kit replied. "That was their biggest mistake." If you've ever felt powerless against a system bigger than yourself, remember this. Truth has a way of coming to light. One voice becomes two, becomes many. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of justice served. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever stood up against corruption? Your story matters too. This woman is nothing but a complete fraud. Quinn's voice echoed through the boardroom, his finger pointed directly at me. Every contract she claims to have secured is either grossly exaggerated or entirely fabricated. 20 pairs of expectant eyes turned to me. The projector hummed in the background, displaying Quinn's presentation titled Financial Discrepancies, Addressing Performance, Misrepresentation. I sat motionless as he continued his assault. "I've reviewed every supposed deal she's brought in. The numbers don't add up. The clients she claims to have secured don't exist at the scale she's reporting. What we have here is a systematic attempt to mislead this board about her performance." The board president, Iris, leaned forward. "These are serious allegations, Quinn. I don't make them lightly. As chief financial officer, it's my responsibility to ensure fiscal integrity." He distributed folders to each board member. "You'll find detailed analysis showing the discrepancies between what she's reported and what our system actually contains." My boss, Tony, who had championed my hiring 6 months ago, wouldn't meet my eyes. "What's most concerning," Quinn continued, adjusting his tie, "is that when questioned about these inconsistencies, she provided documentation that doesn't match our official records." The whispering started. I could feel my career disintegrating with each passing second. "In my 15 years with this company, I've never seen such blatant deception," Quinn concluded. "I recommend immediate termination." I finally stood up. The room quieted. I walked to my briefcase without a word, removed a leather portfolio, and placed it on the table. "What's this supposed to be?" Quinn asked, irritation evident in his voice. "The truth," I replied, opening the portfolio. Inside were the original contracts, not copies, but the actual documents with real signatures, watermarks, and official stamps. "These are the original contracts I submitted, every single one." I placed them one by one on the table. Interestingly, they don't match the versions currently in our system. Quinn laughed nervously. Anyone can create fake documents. That's why I invited someone else to join us today. I checked my watch. She should be arriving any minute. The door opened, and every head turned. A woman in an impeccably tailored suit walked in. Dahlia, the procurement director from our largest new client. I apologize for my lateness, she said. Traffic was terrible. Quinn's face drained of color. Dahlia approached the table. I understand there's some confusion about our contract. Perfect timing, I said. Would you mind confirming which version of these documents your company signed? She examined both sets of contracts, mine and the ones Quinn had distributed. These, she said, pointing to my originals, are what we signed. The others have been altered. Our commitment was for twice the amount shown in those copies. The silence that followed was deafening. If you're invested in this story already, take a second to like and subscribe. I promise what happens next will completely change how you think about workplace revenge. My name is Lyra Keller. 6 months ago, I was hired as the Director of Market Expansion for a multinational company that specializes in enterprise software solutions. My background isn't typical. I didn't graduate from an elite university or climb the traditional corporate ladder. Instead, I built my reputation by successfully entering untapped markets that others deemed too risky or unprofitable. When I was hired, the company was struggling to grow beyond its established markets. The board wanted fresh ideas, which put me at odds with Quinn Reynolds, the long-standing CFO who preferred safe, predictable strategies. We need innovation, Tony had told me during my interview. Our traditional approaches aren't yielding results anymore. What he didn't say was that Quinn controlled nearly every aspect of the company's financial operations with an iron grip. Any deviation from his methods was treated as a threat. I spent my first month studying the markets everyone else had overlooked. While other executives focused on saturated territories, I identified 5 emerging regions with untapped potential. My approach was unconventional. Rather than offering our standard packages, I created tailored solutions specific to each region's unique challenges. Within 3 months, I had secured contracts worth more than what the company had achieved in the previous year combined. The board was thrilled. Everyone except Quinn. It started small. Reports I submitted would be questioned. Numbers would mysteriously change between my submission and the board review. Client communications would get delayed or lost entirely. System glitches, Quinn would explain with a thin smile whenever I raised concerns. Then came the reassignments. Key team members who supported my projects were suddenly transferred to other departments. Resources I had been promised were redirected to more pressing initiatives. Despite these obstacles, I continued to bring in new business. Each success seemed to intensify Quinn's efforts to undermine me. One evening, while working late, I noticed something strange. I was reviewing a contract in the system that I had personally finalized the previous week. The numbers didn't match my records. The commitment amount had been reduced by 40%. I checked another contract. Same issue. Then another. All modified. That night, I began keeping physical copies of everything. I started documenting every interaction, every submission, every glitch. I recorded dates, times, witnesses. I built my case methodically, knowing I would need irrefutable evidence. What I didn't expect to discover was the money trail. While tracking the discrepancies in our client payments, I noticed a pattern. Funds would be received in full, but only partially recorded in our financial system. The differences were significant, but distributed across multiple accounts in ways that wouldn't trigger automatic audits. I needed help from someone who could access the financial records without alerting Quinn. Penny from IT had always been friendly, and I sensed she had her own reasons to distrust the CFO. I need to verify some payment records, I told her over coffee one day. Off the books. She studied me carefully. Quinn monitors everything in the financial databases. I know. After a long pause, she said, "Give me 3 days." True to her word, Penny provided me with access logs showing who had modified the contracts and when. Every change traced back to Quinn's credentials or those of his 2 closest allies in the finance department. But I still needed to understand why. What was Quinn gaining from sabotaging my work? The answer came from an unexpected source. During a company happy hour, Quinn's assistant, Jasper, had too much to drink. "He's terrified of you," Jasper slurred. "Says you're exposing his whole operation." "What operation?" I asked casually. Jasper leaned in. "The clients. He's been skimming from the big accounts for years. Your new contracts don't fit his system." That was the missing piece. My tailored contracts included detailed payment tracking that would make Quinn's skimming scheme impossible to maintain. He wasn't just protecting his territory, he was protecting his fraud. I spent the next month gathering evidence while pretending to be demoralized by the mounting obstacles. I let Quinn believe he was winning, that I was considering resignation, all while building an airtight case. The timing of his attack today wasn't coincidental. Tomorrow, the board was scheduled to review my proposal for a transparent payment tracking system that would have exposed Quinn's entire operation. He had to discredit me today. What he didn't know was that I had already shared my findings with external auditors and law enforcement. The investigation was well underway. As Dahlia confirmed the authenticity of my contracts, Quinn's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I knew exactly what message he had received. The authorities had just arrived at the building. Quinn stood abruptly. "This meeting is over. We need to verify these claims properly." "Sit down, Quinn," Iris commanded. "We're just getting started." The door opened again. This time, it was building security, accompanied by two people in suits. "Quinn Reynolds?" one of them asked, showing identification. "We need you to come with us." Quinn's face contorted with rage as he turned to me. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done." Quinn looked for allies around the room, finding none. The board members who had praised his financial acumen for years now stared at him with dawning horror. "This is absurd," he sputtered, pointing at me. "She's manipulated you all. These so-called original contracts are the forgeries." The security personnel stepped closer. "You want to know what really happened?" I asked the board, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Every contract I secured was immediately altered in our system. The payment amounts were reduced, terms were changed, and the differences were being siphoned elsewhere." Iris examined one of the contracts. "These modifications would have cost us millions. 27 million to be exact," I said, "over just the past 6 months." Quinn lunged toward me suddenly, his face twisted with rage. "You destroyed everything." Security intercepted him before he could reach me. As they restrained him, a flash drive fell from his pocket, skidding across the polished floor to stop at my feet. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. "Don't," Quinn warned, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "You have no idea what's on there." But I did know. It was the final piece I needed. As Quinn was escorted from the room, Tony cleared his throat. "Lyra, I think we all deserve a complete explanation." "Of course," I agreed. "But first, there's something you all need to see." I connected the flash drive to the boardroom computer. The screen filled with spreadsheets, intricate financial records spanning 15 years. Quinn's records. Every transaction, I explained. Every manipulated contract. Every diverted payment. He kept meticulous records of his own fraud. The board members leaned forward, stunned by the scope of the deception. "How did you know about this drive?" Iris asked. I smiled slightly. I didn't know he carried it with him, but I knew it existed. Quinn was too careful not to keep records. What I didn't tell them was how close I'd come to missing everything. How Quinn had nearly succeeded in destroying my career before I caught on to his scheme. How my discovery had been part luck, part desperation. It began 3 months after I joined the company. I had just closed a major deal with Dahlia's firm when I received an unexpected visit from Harriet, one of our longtime clients. "I wanted to thank you in person," she said, sitting across from me. "Your redesigned payment structure saved us considerable resources." I was confused. "I haven't worked on your account," Harriet frowned. "But I was told, the new quarterly billing cycle, the adjusted service tiers." "When was this implemented?" I asked. "Last month. The notification came on company letterhead, signed by you. My signature, my name, changes I never authorized." After Harriet left, I dug through every communication with her company. Nothing matched what she described. When I accessed the client portal, however, there they were, service changes bearing my electronic signature. I took my concerns to Tony that afternoon. "It's probably a misunderstanding," he said dismissively. "Quinn mentioned you were making adjustments to several accounts." "I've never touched Harriet's account." Tony sighed. "Look, Quinn has managed our client relationships for years. If he says these changes were authorized, I'm inclined to believe him." That night, I couldn't sleep. Someone had used my credentials to modify client contracts. But why? The changes didn't benefit the company. They actually reduced our revenue while making it appear the clients were getting a better deal. Unless. The next morning, I contacted Harriet again. "One more question. Where do you send your payments now?" Same as always, she replied. Though the account number changed recently. Could you send me those details? When I saw the new account information, something clicked. It wasn't a company account I recognized. I needed to verify my suspicion, but I couldn't trust anyone inside the finance department. That's when I remembered Penny from IT. We'd chatted occasionally in the break room, and she'd mentioned her frustration with Quinn's department repeatedly. The finance systems are held together with tape and good intentions, she'd told me once. Quinn refuses any updates that would make tracking easier. Now I understood why. Penny helped me access the payment logs without triggering alerts. What we discovered was stunning. Clients were paying the original contracted amounts, but only portions were being recorded in our official system. The differences vanished into a network of accounts just outside the company's regular audit scope. This is way beyond a few accounting tricks, Penny whispered as we reviewed the data. This is systematic fraud. How long has it been happening? Penny scrolled through the records. Based on these patterns? Years, maybe since Quinn became CFO. As I uncovered more details, I realized the true scope of Quinn's operation. He hadn't just been stealing, he'd built an entire shadow financial system within the company. Anyone who threatened that system found themselves marginalized or forced out, which explained why he'd targeted me so aggressively. My approach to contracts included transparent tracking mechanisms that would have made his diversions impossible. He tried to force out 3 expansion directors before you, Penny revealed. Each time someone got close to his operation, they'd suddenly face accusations of incompetence. Why hasn't anyone caught this before? Quinn controls all financial reporting. The board sees only what he wants them to see. I spent weeks gathering evidence, documenting every diverted payment, every altered contract. I needed to be certain before making accusations against someone with Quinn's influence. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly he would move against me. One Tuesday morning, I arrived to find my access to client accounts restricted. By afternoon, several of my team members had been reassigned. By the end of the week, rumors were circulating about discrepancies in my reports. Quinn was setting me up to take the fall. I had 2 choices, run or fight. I chose to fight, but on my terms. Rather than confronting Quinn directly, I contacted Dahlia and several other clients privately. I explained that there appeared to be system issues affecting their contracts and asked them to verify the terms they'd agreed to. Their responses confirmed everything. The contracts in our system bore little resemblance to what they'd signed. This is troubling, Dahlia told me during a confidential lunch. We specifically chose your company because of the terms you offered. Would you be willing to state that officially if needed? She studied me carefully. You're planning something. I'm protecting myself and our clients. Dahlia nodded slowly. Count me in. With client confirmation, I approached Serena, the company's legal counsel. I presented my evidence without accusation, framing it as a system problem I'd discovered. This requires immediate investigation, Serena said after reviewing my documentation. But proceed carefully. If what you're suggesting is true, the person responsible won't go down without a fight. She was right. The next day, my work laptop mysteriously crashed, wiping weeks of local files. Then my office was accidentally locked, preventing access to physical documents I'd stored there. Quinn was covering his tracks. What he didn't know was that I'd already duplicated everything. Physical copies were stored off-site. Digital backups existed on drives Quinn couldn't access. I was ready for his final move, which came sooner than expected. Yesterday, Quinn called for an emergency board meeting to address critical financial discrepancies. I knew he was making his play to have me terminated before I could expose him. He's going to try to destroy you tomorrow, Penny warned me. He's been pulling reports all day, building a case. Let him, I replied. It's exactly what I've been waiting for. The night before the board meeting, I received an unexpected visitor at my apartment. A nervous young man fidgeted on my doorstep. My name is Royce, he said. I work in accounting under Quinn. I know who you are. Quinn ordered me to alter your client contracts in the system. I've been doing it for months. His hands trembled. I didn't know it was part of something bigger until I overheard him on the phone yesterday. He's planning to destroy all the original records after tomorrow's meeting. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't be part of it anymore. He handed me a small object. This fell from Quinn's jacket today. It's everything. His entire operation. The flash drive that now displayed its secrets to the stunned board. Every transaction is documented here, I explained to the board members, including the offshore accounts where the money was transferred. Tony looked physically ill. How much are we talking about? Based on these records? Approximately $112 million over 15 years. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Iris banged her gavel for order. "We need to contact the authorities immediately." "They're already here," I said quietly. "The FBI has been building a case for weeks. Those agents who escorted Quinn out, they weren't building security." As the implications sank in, Dahlia stood. "In light of these revelations, my company would like to reaffirm our commitment to our original contract terms, provided we can be assured of proper handling going forward." Other board members began asking questions simultaneously, the room filling with anxious voices. Amid the chaos, my phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. "You think this is over? Check the Panama files." I felt a chill run through me. The Panama files were mentioned in Quinn's records, a secondary set of accounts I hadn't been able to access. Whatever they contained, Quinn believed they would change everything. And somewhere in the building, an alarm began to sound. The alarm wailed through the building, red emergency lights flashing in the hallway outside the boardroom. "What's happening?" Iris demanded, rising from her chair. Before anyone could answer, the lights went out. The windowless boardroom plunged into darkness, broken only by the glow of emergency exit signs and the scattered light from phone screens. "Everyone stay calm," Tony said, his voice betraying his own anxiety. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows across the worried faces around the table. My phone vibrated again. "Now you understand. This was never just about money." Serena burst through the door. "We need to evacuate. Now." Someone triggered the fire suppression system and locked down the server rooms. "The evidence," I gasped, lunging for the flash drive still connected to the boardroom computer. "Leave it," Serena ordered. "Security has the building surrounded. Nothing leaves." "You don't understand," I insisted, yanking the drive free. "This isn't a coincidence." As we filed into the hallway, the sprinkler system activated, soaking us in seconds. Board members scattered toward the exits, while security personnel shouted directions over the alarm. I felt a hand grip my arm. It was Penny, her face tense. "This is a data purge," she hissed in my ear as we moved with the crowd. "Someone's trying to wipe the servers remotely. If they succeed, half your evidence vanishes." My mind raced. Quinn was in custody, but he wasn't working alone. Someone was executing a contingency plan. "The Panama files," I muttered. "What are they?" "I don't know exactly, but Quinn kept them on a separate secured server. Whatever they contain, it's serious enough that Quinn kept them isolated from everything else." We reached the lobby where dozens of employees huddled in confused groups. Through the glass doors, I could see police cars and fire trucks arriving. "I need to get to Quinn's office," I told Penny. "Are you insane? The building's on lockdown, which means whatever they're trying to hide is still here. This is our only chance." Penny hesitated, then nodded. "Fifth floor security office. I can override the elevator lockdown from there." We slipped away from the crowd, taking a service corridor that bypassed the main security checkpoint. Penny swiped her badge at a maintenance elevator. "This doesn't connect to the central system," she explained as the doors closed. "It's for facility management." The elevator groaned upward, stopping at the fifth floor. The security office was empty. Everyone had deployed to manage the evacuation. Penny slid into the chair at the main terminal. "I need 2 minutes." I watched the door while she typed furiously, bypassing security protocols and disabling alarms. "Got it," she announced. "Quinn's office is unlocked, but we have maybe 10 minutes before someone notices these overrides. I'll be quick." We took the stairs to the executive floor, now eerily silent. Quinn's corner office door swung open at my touch. Inside, everything looked immaculate. Too immaculate. "Someone's already been here," I noted, seeing the perfectly arranged desk. "There's not even a coffee cup." "What exactly are we looking for?" Penny asked, glancing nervously at her watch. "I'm not sure." I ran my hands along the underside of the desk, checking for hidden compartments. "Nothing." "Try the painting," Penny suggested, pointing to the landscape on the wall. "Classic hiding spot." I removed the painting, revealing an electronic safe. "Can you crack it?" Penny examined the keypad. "Not without equipment, but..." She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the safe. "Let me send this to someone." While she worked, I searched the rest of the office. The bookshelves held leather-bound finance volumes, awards, and family photos. I paused at one showing Quinn with a woman and teenage boy. "Quinn doesn't have children," I murmured, studying the image. "That's his nephew, Ryan," Penny said without looking up. "Quinn's been his guardian since his sister died 10 years ago." The pieces clicked into place. The overseas accounts, they're not just for Quinn. Before Penny could respond, her phone chimed. My contact says this safe model has a design flaw. If you enter the wrong code 3 times, it triggers a factory reset and opens with the default code. What's the catch? If there's a security protocol installed, it might trigger data deletion first. I stared at the safe. We have to risk it. I deliberately entered 3 wrong codes. The safe beeped angrily, then went silent. A green light appeared. Try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Penny suggested. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single tablet computer, secured with a biometric lock. Now what? We can't fake his fingerprint. I thought for a moment. We don't need to. We just need to find his backup. I examined the tablet closely. Look at the edge. There's a micro SD card slot. Using my fingernail, I carefully extracted the tiny card. This is what we need. Penny checked her watch. We need to go. Now. We returned to the lobby just as a head count was finishing. No one had noticed our absence in the chaos. Outside, the situation had escalated. FBI agents were now visibly present, interviewing executives and securing evidence. I slipped the SD card into my pocket just as Agent Kelton approached me. Miss Keller, we need your statement about Mr. Reynolds. Of course. And we'll need all evidence you've collected. I handed over the flash drive. Everything I have is here. It wasn't a complete lie. The SD card wasn't mine. Yet. 4 hours later, after endless questioning and documentation, I finally returned to my apartment. The building was still being swept for evidence, and we were told it would remain closed for days. I inserted the SD card into my laptop and held my breath. Password protected, of course. I tried various combinations based on what I knew about Quinn, birthdays, addresses. Nothing worked. Then I remembered the photo. I tried his nephew's birth date. The files unlocked. What I found stunned me. The Panama files weren't just financial records. They were communications. Hundreds of emails between Quinn and board members, executives, even competitors. Quinn had been blackmailing half the company leadership for years. I scrolled through file after file, my horror growing. Quinn had dirt on everyone. Gambling debts, affairs, medical conditions they'd hidden, questionable past business dealings. He'd built his position not just through financial fraud but through systematic manipulation. And buried in those communications was something even more disturbing. Evidence that Tony, my own boss, had been complicit from the beginning. He hadn't just known about Quinn's scheme, he'd been an architect of it. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. Hello? Lyra, it's Dahlia. Something's wrong. The FBI just questioned me for 3 hours about my relationship with you. My blood ran cold. What did they ask? They wanted to know if you offered me personal incentives to support your story against Quinn. They showed me documentation suggesting you've been siphoning funds yourself. That's impossible. That's what I told them. But Lyra, they had evidence. Bank transfers with your signature. Emails that appeared to come from you. My mind raced. Someone was framing me, trying to make it look like I was the criminal. Don't worry, I assured her. I can prove these are forgeries. After we hung up, I dove back into the Panama files. If someone was setting me up, the evidence would be here. It took hours of searching, but I found it. A detailed plan to use me as a scapegoat if Quinn's scheme was ever discovered. The plan included fake accounts in my name, fabricated communications, even a timeline for when to deploy the false evidence. And at the bottom of the document was an electronic signature, Tony Mitchell, Chief Strategy Officer. My own boss had selected me specifically because my background made me the perfect fall person. No elite education, no powerful family connections, no long history with the company. If things went wrong, I would take the blame while the real perpetrators walked away clean. The document was dated 2 weeks before I was hired. My phone rang again. This time it was Serena. The FBI is issuing a warrant for your arrest, she said without preamble. They're claiming you orchestrated the whole scheme and framed Quinn. That's absurd. I've given them all the evidence. Evidence they're now claiming you fabricated. Quinn is telling them you hacked the system to alter records and make him appear guilty. Why would they believe him over me? Serena hesitated. Because Tony is backing his story. And so are 3 board members. The air left my lungs. They were cutting me loose, making me the sacrifice to save themselves. What do? Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. I'm sending someone you can trust. She'll be there in 20 minutes. I ended the call, my hands shaking. My career, my freedom, my entire future hung in the balance. Everything I'd worked for was about to be destroyed. Unless. I looked again at the Panama files. Quinn had been meticulous in his documentation, recording every conversation, every deal, every secret. He'd built his leverage through perfect information. And now I had it all. My doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. She held up an ID. Mira Torres, federal prosecutor. I opened the door. Serena sent you? She nodded grimly. We don't have much time. In about an hour, agents will arrive with a warrant for your arrest. The evidence against you has been manufactured brilliantly. I have proof it's fake. Show me. I led her to my laptop, explaining the Panama files as we went. Everything is here. The original scheme, the contingency plans, the real conspirators. She examined the files carefully. This changes everything, but it won't be enough. What do you mean? They'll claim you created these files to implicate others. We need something Quinn and Tony can't explain away. My phone buzzed with a text from Penny. They're cleaning house. Security just escorted me out. Building access revoked. Then another text. This one from an unknown number. You think those files will save you? Check your bank accounts. With growing dread, I opened my banking app. My accounts had been drained. Worse, there were incoming transfers from company accounts. Transfers I never made, designed to make me look guilty. They're setting me up in real time, I whispered. Mira's expression hardened. We need to move now. Grab only what's essential. As I packed a small bag, another text arrived. Board emergency session tomorrow, 9 a.m. Your termination and criminal referral on the agenda. Iris. I showed Mira. It's over. Not yet, she replied, a determined glint in her eye. Tomorrow's board meeting is exactly what we need. They're going to fire me and hand me over to the FBI. Not if we arrive with the right audience. She made a call. This is Torres. I need the full team ready for tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., and contact Judge Warner for emergency warrants. We're going to need at least 15. She turned to me after ending the call. Do you have enough evidence to prove who's involved? I nodded slowly, an idea forming. Actually, I think I know how to make them confess. How? I smiled grimly. By giving them exactly what they want, me, completely discredited and desperate. As I outlined my plan, Mira's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious approval. It's risky, she warned. If they don't take the bait. They will, I assured her. Because there's one thing Quinn taught me without realizing it. What's that? The most dangerous person is the one with nothing left to lose. I sent a single text to Tony. I know about Panama. Meet me tonight, or everything goes public. His reply came seconds later. Where? The hotel lobby was nearly empty at 11 p.m. I sat in a corner booth, the SD card clutched in my palm, watching the revolving door. Mira and her team were positioned throughout the hotel, invisible but present. Tony arrived precisely on time, his usual confident stride betrayed by nervous glances over his shoulder. He slid into the booth across from me, refusing the drink I'd ordered for him. This is incredibly inappropriate, he began, his voice low. You're under investigation. So I've heard. Funny how quickly I went from rising star to criminal mastermind. If you have something to say it quickly. I'm only here as a courtesy. I placed my phone on the table, recording app visibly running. Tony's eyes widened. What are you doing? Being transparent. Something this company could use more of. His hand shot out to grab my phone, but I pulled it back. Touch it, and federal agents will be at this table in seconds. He froze, then leaned back, forcing a smile. You're not thinking clearly, Lyra. Whatever you believe you know. I know everything, Tony. The Panama files, the 15-year fraud scheme. Your role in selecting me as the perfect scapegoat. His expression didn't change, but a vein pulsed at his temple. Fiction. Quinn has clearly manipulated you. That's your defense? After everything in those files? I laughed bitterly. You recruited me specifically because I had the right background to take the fall. No family money, no prestigious degrees, no powerful connections, just enough talent to be believable as someone who got in over her head. These accusations are absurd. Then why were offshore accounts established in my name 3 weeks before you hired me? Why does the contingency plan in the Panama files describe exactly what's happening now, right down to which board members would support a narrative blaming me? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Tony's face. He hadn't expected me to have such specific details. What do you want? He finally asked. Originally, justice. Now, survival. I slid a small envelope across the table. Inside is an account number. 5 million transferred by 8 a.m. tomorrow, and the SD card is yours. I disappear. You and the board continue your comfortable lives. Tony's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe you'd walk away for money? You've destroyed my reputation. By tomorrow, I'll be unemployable and probably facing charges. What choice do I have? He studied me, searching for deception. Finding none, he took the envelope. If this is a trap, it's survival, for both of us. After Tony left, Mira emerged from a nearby alcove. He bought it. Of course he did, I replied. People like Tony always believe others can be bought because they can be. Did you get everything? She held up her phone. Every word. Plus his reaction when you mentioned the accounts established before your hiring. That alone shows prior knowledge. It won't be enough. We need tomorrow to work perfectly. It will, Mira assured me. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be the performance of your life. The next morning, I arrived at the board meeting flanked by Mira and 2 federal agents. My appearance caused an immediate stir. I wasn't supposed to know about this meeting, let alone arrive with federal authorities. Iris recovered first. Miss Keller, this is a closed session. Concerning my termination and criminal referral, I believe I'm entitled to be present. Tony's face remained impassive, but his eyes darted to the clock. 8:47 a.m. No money had been transferred. He'd called my bluff. Or so he thought. Miss Torres is a federal prosecutor, I continued, gesturing to Mira. She's here because I've been cooperating with an ongoing investigation. Into Quinn's activities, yes, Tony interjected smoothly. Unfortunately, new evidence suggests Miss Keller herself may have been involved. Mira stepped forward. Actually, our investigation has expanded significantly in the past 24 hours. On cue, the boardroom doors opened again. FBI agents entered, followed by Penny and someone I recognized from Quinn's personal photos, his nephew, Ryan. What is the meaning of this? Iris demanded. Ryan has provided us with critical information, Mira announced. As Quinn Reynolds' ward and a former intern in the finance department, he had unique access to his uncle's activities. All eyes turned to the young man, who looked both terrified and resolved. My uncle made me help him, Ryan said, his voice shaking. At first, it was just small things, changing numbers in spreadsheets, backdating documents. I didn't understand what I was doing. When I figured it out and threatened to come forward, he reminded me that he controlled my college fund, my housing, everything. Tony's face had gone pale. This is preposterous. You can't possibly believe. We have Ryan's sworn testimony, Mira interrupted, along with data recovered from his personal devices, showing instructions from both Quinn Reynolds and you, Mr. Mitchell. The boardroom erupted into chaos. Several board members rose from their seats, demanding explanations. Others sat frozen, likely those implicated in the Panama files. Iris banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! We will have order! When the room finally quieted, Mira continued. Last night, Mr. Mitchell met with Miss Keller and effectively confirmed his knowledge of the fraud scheme, including the establishment of false accounts in her name before she was even hired. That's a lie, Tony snapped. I met with her as a courtesy, nothing more. I reached into my bag and placed a device on the table. This is why you couldn't find the SD card when you had my apartment searched at 3 a.m., Tony. It was never there. His face went from pale to ashen. I pressed play, and Tony's voice filled the room. What do you want? My recorded response. Originally, justice. Now, survival. The recording continued, damning in its clarity. When it finished, I looked directly at Tony. You were right not to transfer the money. It was a trap. I never wanted your money. I wanted your confession. One of the agents stepped forward, producing a warrant. Anthony Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. As agents handcuffed Tony, the boardroom doors opened once more. Quinn was escorted in, already in custody. His eyes locked with mine, filled with cold hatred. Tell them, Quinn, I challenged. Tell them how you selected me because I'd make the perfect scapegoat. Quinn's lips curved into a smile. You think you've won? Look around this room. Half the people here were involved. They'll bury this, bury you. That's why we're not relying on just them, Mira replied. On her signal, the blinds were opened, revealing the office bullpen beyond the glass walls. Dozens of employees stood watching, alongside a group of journalists. Penny had positioned cameras to broadcast the entire confrontation throughout the building. The Panama files have been secured as evidence, Mira announced to the room. Multiple federal agencies are currently executing search warrants on the homes and offices of everyone implicated in those files. 3 board members abruptly stood, reaching for their phones. Agents intercepted them. No calls at this time, Mira instructed. Everyone remains here until we've conducted initial interviews. Iris, ashen-faced, turned to me. You've destroyed this company. No, I corrected her. Quinn, Tony, and everyone who enabled them destroyed it. I'm trying to save what's left. Over the next hour, agents led away 7 board members and 3 executives. Those remaining sat in stunned silence as federal teams secured computers and documents throughout the building. When the initial chaos subsided, Iris approached me in the hallway. The board members who weren't involved would like to speak with you. In a smaller conference room, 4 shell-shocked board members waited. The eldest, Grace, spoke first. We've been blind fools. The company is facing catastrophe, stock in freefall, clients fleeing, employees in turmoil. What do you need from me? I asked. Your help, Grace replied simply. You uncovered this. You understood the scheme when none of us did. We need someone who can rebuild trust, both internally and with our clients. You want me to stay? After everything? We're offering you the CFO position, with a mandate to implement whatever transparency measures you deem necessary. I almost laughed at the irony. You realize most of the executive team is in federal custody, which is why we need to move quickly. The company can survive this, but only with the right leadership. I thought of all the honest employees whose livelihoods depended on the company's survival, people like Penny, who had risked everything to help expose the truth. I have conditions, I said. Full audit powers, a complete overhaul of financial systems, and immunity from civil litigation for whistleblowers like Penny. Done, Grace agreed without hesitation. 3 days later, I stood before hundreds of anxious employees in the company auditorium. Behind me, a presentation displayed my plan for rebuilding the company's financial structure and ethical foundation. Many of you knew something was wrong, I began. You saw inconsistencies, felt pressured to ignore protocols, or witnessed retaliation against those who asked questions. Today marks the end of that culture. I outlined the changes. New financial tracking systems, anonymous reporting channels, regular external audits, and a revised leadership structure with built-in checks and balances. Every person in this room has a choice to make, I concluded. Help rebuild this company on a foundation of integrity, or leave. There will be no middle ground. The applause began hesitantly, then grew to a thunderous standing ovation. Employees who had feared for their jobs now saw a path forward, difficult but clear. As the crowd dispersed, Dahlia approached me. Impressive speech. I almost believe this place can be saved. It can be, with the right partners. I handed her a new contract. Your company was our biggest client before all this. I'd like you to be our first under the new system. She smiled, taking the document. Bold move, starting with the client who witnessed your lowest moment. Also my finest, depending on how you look at it. Dahlia nodded. I'll review this with our team, but she extended her hand. I think we can do business. 6 months later, I stood in my new office, not Quinn's old corner suite, which I'd had converted into a collaborative workspace, but a glass-walled room centrally located among the finance team. Transparency wasn't just a policy now. It was built into our physical environment. On my desk sat a small trophy the staff had given me, a miniature magnifying glass mounted on a plaque reading, Truth Finder. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Former CFO, Quinn Reynolds sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Below it, a secondary headline, CSO Anthony Mitchell agrees to testimony against remaining conspirators. Justice, finally. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Penny, recently promoted to IT security director. The quarterly audit team is here, she announced. And you've got that client call in 15 minutes. I'll be right there. As Penny left, I took one final look at the article on my phone. The last paragraph noted that all of Quinn's assets had been seized, including the funds intended for his nephew's education. Ryan, who had been granted immunity for his cooperation, now faced an uncertain future. I opened my desk drawer and removed a letter I'd been meaning to send. Inside was a scholarship offer for Ryan, not from me personally, but from a foundation I'd established using a portion of my new salary. The Transparency and Leadership Foundation would help support whistleblowers and their families, starting with Quinn's nephew. Some might call it mercy. I preferred to think of it as the final piece of my revenge, ensuring that even Quinn's attempt to corrupt his nephew ultimately failed. I sealed the envelope and placed it in my outbox. Then I gathered my materials for the audit team waiting in the conference room. Another routine check in our new system of perpetual verification. The company was healing. Our stock price had stabilized. Clients were returning, and the culture of fear had been replaced with something revolutionary in the corporate world: honesty. As I walked through the open office, employees nodded respectfully, not with the fearful deference they'd shown Quinn, but with genuine appreciation. I'd shown them that integrity wasn't just an abstract virtue, it was a practical business strategy. That was my true revenge, not just exposing the corrupt system, but building something better in its place. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. I share new corporate revenge stories every week, and your support helps this channel grow. Have you ever witnessed workplace corruption? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire my next video.